The forest on planet Kravex-9 trembled with every step she took. Zara moved like a predator born of shadow and thunder. Her armor was pieced from the bones of fallen champions. Her eyes glowed red in the dark, scanning for her next prize. No species had escaped her hunt yet. None had lived to tell the story of her mercy, because there was none to begin with. She did not kill for survival or defense. She hunted for the thrill, for the legacy, for the trophies she carved from her victims. Heads, claws, weapons, even. Languages, each one pinned to her ship's vault, like a museum of her victories. The galactic channels whispered her name in fear, calling her the Red Huntress. Her legend stretched across 12 systems, and even the warlords of Verok Prime dared not speak her name aloud. Now, she had come to Kravex-9, a jungle planet, barely mapped by the trade corps, known for its wild storms and strange electromagnetic fields. But there was one report, a creature unlike any recorded before. It stood tall, upright, strange-skinned, and armed with technology no scanner could decrypt. The report called it a human. Zara felt something she hadn't felt in years: curiosity. The night she arrived, lightning split the sky in half. She dropped from her stealth craft silently and vanished into the tree line. Every step was calculated. Her breathing slowed to match the pulse of the forest. Zara had slain beasts that tore starships apart. She had walked through flame worlds with nothing but a dagger. But as she stepped deeper into the vines and fog, the air around her changed. It wasn't fear, it was something older. Something primal. As if the jungle was watching her now, she heard the first sound 3 hours in. It wasn't a roar or a screech. It was music, human music, soft humming, carried by the wind. It didn't belong there. Zara froze and tilted her head. No prey had ever dared make noise before she struck. Was this creature stupid, or confident enough to invite her? Her lips curled into a small smile as she followed the sound. The human was sitting by a small campfire. Male, tall, wearing worn fabric armor and boots too thin for the terrain. His weapon was strange metal and wood, combined with glowing lines of energy she couldn't trace. And he was humming. Not to scare or call. Just for himself. Zara stayed in the trees, invisible to any known sensor. She watched him for hours, waiting for weakness. He sharpened his blade. He cooked food. He even whittled wood into small shapes, birds, faces, a hand reaching upward. Something about that hand bothered her. She didn't know why. Then he spoke aloud, not knowing she was there. "Storm's coming. Hope the fire holds." His voice wasn't shaken or proud. It was just real, like wind brushing over metal. Zara tightened her grip on her plasma hook, but she didn't leap. Her instincts told her to wait. Her heart, the one she thought she had buried long ago, beat once with hesitation. At dawn, she made her move. Not to kill, but to test. She dropped a single plasma disc near the fire, enough to scorch but not destroy. The human shot to his feet, weapon raised, eyes scanning. He didn't panic. He didn't scream. He just whispered, "You gonna talk? Or just circle like a vulture?" That line froze her more than any freeze ray could. She stepped from the shadows, armor glowing, weapon in hand. The human didn't flinch. His eyes widened for a moment, but not in fear. It was recognition, not of her, but of what she was. A killer, a predator, a creature who had never been challenged. "Until now, what are you?" she asked, voice like gravel grinding steel. The human tilted his head and gave a half smile. "Name's Connor. You must be the one collecting heads." "Guess I should feel honored." She blinked once. He didn't aim his gun at her anymore. Just stood there, looking into her eyes like he'd already figured her out. That was when Zara felt something she had never felt before in a hunt. Doubt. Zara had faced warlords who melted planets and beasts that devoured moons. But this human, standing barefoot near a fire, made her hesitate. He had no armor of worth, no backup, and no fear in his voice. She circled him like a viper, expecting him to retreat or panic. Instead, he just kept watching her. Her mind raced through possible strategies. A quick throw of her plasma hook could take out his chest. A flash pulse from her gauntlet would blind him long enough for a clean decapitation. But she didn't act. Something about the stillness of the moment kept her in place. Even the forest around them seemed to hold its breath. "You're not from around here, are you?" Connor said calmly. He crouched by the fire again and poked at it with a stick. "Didn't mean to trespass. I was tracking some radiation signatures. I guess they were yours." His tone was neither mocking nor defensive. He spoke like he had nothing to hide. Zara narrowed her eyes and scanned him for concealed weapons. There were none. His rifle was charged but held loosely. His body language remained open. She had trained to recognize lies in every species she hunted. This one told none. Or if he did, they were buried too deep for her to read. "I know who you are," Connor said after a moment. "The huntress, red eyes, bone armor. You're kind of a legend." His voice lowered slightly, not in awe, but in something close to respect. "Didn't think I'd meet you out here, though. Alone." She didn't respond with words. Her answer was a soft hum from her gauntlet, charging up its blade edge. Still, he didn't run. "You gotta kill me for being curious?" he asked. "Or are you just trying to figure out what I taste like?" The corner of his mouth twitched up. A joke, perhaps. No other prey had ever joked before. No other prey had ever spoken with her like an equal. Zara deactivated her blade. The move shocked even herself. She hadn't done that in years. "You're different," she finally said. "You speak like you've already survived death," Connor chuckled. "I've seen a few things." His eyes shifted to the small wood carving of the reaching hand beside the fire. "I don't scare easy anymore." That was when she noticed the scars. Faint lines beneath his jaw. Burn marks near his shoulder. Slices across his palms. Not fresh, not careless. Old wounds that had closed with time and battle. He was no stranger to pain. No stranger to being hunted. But something about the way he carried it made her want to know more. "What do you want from this planet?" she asked. "There's nothing here but storms and monsters." Connor tilted his head. "That's where you're wrong. There's something buried deep under the soil, ancient tech. Could change a lot of things if used right. That's what I'm looking for." He leaned forward. "What are you looking for?" She didn't answer immediately. Her past hunts echoed in her head. Screams, fire, the satisfaction of the kill. But none of them ever asked her what she was searching for. No one had ever dared ask her that. "I hunt," she said. "That's what I do. It's what I was trained for." Connor nodded slowly. "And after the hunt? What then?" Again silence. The question clung to her like fog. She couldn't remember a time she had thought beyond the kill. Beyond the next trophy, it was survival. "Purpose, identity. You think I'm just a beast," she said. "It wasn't a question. I've killed hundreds, thousands." Her voice remained steady, but her fingers twitched near her weapon again. He looked at her, not with judgment, but understanding. "No, I think you're lost," he replied. "And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to realize it." Zara stepped closer. She could end it now. One motion, one strike. He wouldn't even feel it. But as she stared into his eyes, she saw no hatred, no fear, just truth. It unnerved her more than any weapon ever had. The fire cracked between them as the sun began to rise. The jungle sounds returned, slow and cautious. As if the forest itself waited to see what Zara would choose. She turned away without a word. Zara moved through the jungle like a shadow. Every step was silent, every breath controlled. But something in her rhythm had changed. She wasn't hunting anymore, not really. She was thinking, remembering, questioning. That alone was dangerous. She had never spared prey before. Letting one go had always been weakness. That was what her trainers had taught her. That was the rule etched into her bones from childhood. Yet Connor still lived, not just because he was strong or clever, but because he had looked at her like a person, not a monster. The jungle opened into a ravine cut deep by ancient waters. Zara stopped at the edge and stared down. She scanned the cliff walls, looking for signs of the buried tech Connor mentioned. Her gauntlet hummed with interference. Something powerful was hidden below the surface. But she couldn't focus. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face. Calm. Direct. Human. She tapped her come link and called up her ship. The I voice responded coldly. Target not acquired. Mission incomplete. Recommendation, terminate. Subject and retrieve core sample. Zara closed the line without a word. The idea of returning to her ship without Connor's head felt strange. Empty. Wrong. Back at the fire, Connor was gathering his tools. He didn't know if Zara would return or not, but something told him she hadn't left for good. He tied the wooden carvings to his pack and looked up at the sky. The storm had passed, but the air still carried static. He knew danger wasn't gone. It was just watching from the trees. Zara watched from a distance. He moved with purpose. Not fear. She had seen how he cleaned his blade, how he checked the direction of wind. He was no ordinary wanderer. Whatever brought him here wasn't just curiosity. It was survival, maybe redemption. Or maybe, like her, he had no real destination. She stepped from the foliage. No threat, no weapons raised. Just her presence alone was enough to startle most creatures. Connor turned but didn't reach for his gun. He simply raised an eyebrow. Didn't think you'd come back, he said. Most killers don't return twice. Zara tilted her head. I'm not like most, she replied. He chuckled. Yeah, I got that. He pointed to the ravine in the distance. You feel it too, don't you? Something old is buried down there. She nodded once. You said ancient tech, you were right. It's below the rock shelf, guarded by electromagnetic distortion. I'll need hours to breach it. He nodded. Back. Then we'd better move together. That word echoed in her mind. Together. She had never worked with anyone before. Her missions were silent, solo, final. But now, walking side by side with a human, she felt something different. Not loyalty. Not trust. Something simpler. A shared goal. They made their way toward the ravine. Vines curled around their boots. Insects buzzed in strange colors. And all around them, the forest watched. Not with hunger, but with caution. Two predators walking as one. It was a sight the planet had never seen before. At the cliff's edge, Connor unpacked a small device. It pulsed with blue light and started drilling through the rock. Zara stood guard, her eyes scanning every branch. Minutes passed, then hours. Until finally, the drill hit something metallic. The ground shuddered slightly beneath them. Beneath the ravine was not just a cave. It was a structure. Ancient. Massive, made of a metal neither of them could name. Doors lined with symbols that didn't match any known species. Zara reached out and touched the surface. It was cold, but alive. As if waiting for someone to return, Connor stepped inside first. His footsteps echoed like whispers in a tomb. Zara followed, blade drawn but lowered. The air inside the ruins was thin, dry, but charged. Like walking into a memory sealed for ages. Lights flickered to life as they moved. Not chaotic. Intentional. Guiding. Then they found it. In the center chamber stood a glowing sphere suspended in a beam of light. Around it were skeletons of warriors long dead. Each one bore marks of failed attempts. Burned armor. Broken weapons. They had tried to reach the core and died trying. Zara stepped forward. But something in her blood screamed to stop. For the first time in her life, She hesitated not from confusion, but from instinct. Connor placed a hand on her arm and whispered one word. Careful. Zara's body tensed at Connor's touch. It wasn't fear. It was instinct. In her world, contact during a mission was either a warning or a trap. But this wasn't that. His hand was steady, firm, protective. He wasn't stopping her out of dominance. He was warning her with genuine care. The sphere pulsed with slow, rhythmic light. It floated in perfect stillness, untouched by time or gravity. The dead warriors around it looked like statues in reverence. Some still had their weapons raised, as if frozen mid-strike. Whatever power guarded the sphere didn't destroy it. Preserved, Connor stepped carefully toward one of the skeletal remains. He knelt, brushing dust from a shattered helmet. These aren't random explorers, he said. They were chosen. They came here knowing the risk. Zara examined the symbols etched into the walls. The language was lost, but the pattern told a story. It wasn't just technology buried here. It was judgment. I've seen this kind of architecture before, Connor continued. Back on Earth, in a ruin so deep no satellite could map it. This tech is linked across systems, maybe even seeded by something older than us all. Zara turned her gaze back to the sphere. Then why did they fail? She asked. Why were they not chosen? He looked up at her with calm eyes. Because they came with violence, we came with questions. She stared at him for a long moment, then stepped back. I don't understand this, she said. This restraint, this patience. I was taught to take what I wanted, not to wait for permission. Connor nodded. And look where that path led, a room full of corpses. The sphere flickered, once, then again. As if reacting to their conversation, a quiet vibration filled the air. Not a warning, a signal. Something had awakened. Not fully, but enough to know it was being watched. Zara's instincts screamed at her to draw her blade. Instead, she waited. Then the voice came. It was neither male nor female. It was neither kind nor cruel. It simply was. State intent, it said. Zara's eyes widened. So did Connor's. He stepped forward carefully. Peaceful investigation, he answered. Seeking knowledge, not conquest. The chamber held its breath. Then the voice spoke again. Accepted. A section of the floor lowered, revealing a staircase of light. Below it, another chamber glowed with blue patterns and shimmering air. Zara followed without hesitation. Whatever test this was, she would face it, but something in her chest tightened. This wasn't a battlefield. It was something sacred. The second chamber was smaller. Inside was a pedestal and a single chair made of dark, glassy material. Atop the pedestal was a thin rod, glowing at the tip. Connor looked at her. I think it's meant for you. Zara shook her head. Why me? He answered softly. Because you've been chosen to change. She approached the pedestal slowly. Her hand hovered over the rod. It hummed gently. A soft warmth spread through her fingers. Not pain. Not power, memory. Images flashed in her mind. Her first hunt. Her first kill. Her first trophy carved with pride. And then faces. The ones she had ended. The ones who never fought back. Tears welled in her eyes without permission. She hadn't cried since she was a child. Since they made her into a weapon. But now the memories came like rain after a long drought. She had been feared. She had been unstoppable. But never once had she been understood. Connor stood behind her in silence, not pushing, not judging, just present. That presence mattered more than any armor she had ever worn. The rod dimmed and retracted into the pedestal. The chair shifted and folded into the ground. The sphere in the other chamber stopped pulsing. The ruins had seen what they needed. The test was over. She had been acknowledged, not as a killer, but as someone willing to stop. As they exited the ruins, the jungle seemed brighter. The air smelled cleaner. And Zara's steps felt lighter. For the first time, she wasn't carrying the weight of 1,000 deaths. She was carrying the choice of one spared life. Connor smiled at her as they reached the surface. "What now?" he asked. Zara looked at the horizon. And then she whispered her answer. "Now, I decide who I want to be." Zara did not speak much after they left the ruins. She walked in silence, her footsteps quiet over moss-covered ground. Her eyes no longer searched for targets. They searched for meaning. Each tree felt older. Each gust of wind seemed to carry a question. And she had no answers yet. Connor walked beside her, hands resting on his belt. He didn't interrupt her silence. He understood it. Some wounds didn't bleed. Some battles didn't need weapons. This was one of them. And he had seen enough warriors in his life to know when someone was fighting themselves. They reached the ridge overlooking the crash site of her stealth craft. It had remained untouched, hidden beneath a camouflage veil. The ship's metal skin shimmered faintly in the morning sun. Zara stared at it with mixed emotions. It was once her pride. Now it felt like a relic from a life she no longer recognized. Her fingers hovered near the hatch controls. She didn't press them. Instead, she turned to Connor. "You could have taken the sphere," she said. "You could have stolen it while I was distracted." He shook his head. "If I had, it wouldn't have worked. That place wanted truth, not theft." She looked at him for a long time before nodding once. Connor dropped his pack near the roots of an old tree and sat down. "I used to be a soldier," he said quietly. "Not a very good one. Too many questions. Too little obedience." Zara folded her arms, leaning against a boulder. "And now you search for lost technology?" He shrugged. "I search for things worth saving." The sky above rumbled with distant thunder. Storms were always near on Kravix 9, but this time Zara didn't flinch at the sound. She welcomed it. The chaos matched what churned inside her. And for once, she didn't feel the need to escape it. Inside her ship were trophies from across galaxies. Skulls, blades, scraps of armor, all reminders of battles won. Now they felt heavy. Not because of their size, but their weight in memory. She had kept them to feel powerful. Now they only reminded her of everything she had lost. Connor's voice broke the stillness. "You don't have to go back to what you were," he said. "You've seen what's possible now." Zara looked at him, eyes narrowing slightly. "And what do you think I should become?" He didn't answer with words. He simply pointed at her empty hands. For the first time, she wasn't holding a weapon. She looked down slowly. Her fingers were relaxed, her claws retracted. She hadn't realized it until now. She wasn't preparing to kill. She was simply standing, being. It felt unnatural, but peaceful. Zara walked into her ship without speaking. The air inside was stale. The lights flickered to life as they sensed her presence. The vault at the back of the ship opened automatically. Rows of trophies glinted in dim light. She stared at them all, one by one. Then, without ceremony, she began removing them. Skull after skull dropped into a black containment case. Not for display, for burial. Armor fragments followed. She moved like a machine at first, then like a mourner. Each item she removed took something off her shoulders. Until finally, only one item remained on the wall. A small carved symbol. Not from her own culture, but from one of the first she had destroyed, a child's token. She hadn't known why she kept it. Now she understood. It had always haunted her. It had always been a question she refused to face. She took it down and held it to her chest. When she stepped out again, the case of trophies was in her hands. She looked at Connor, then at the deep ravine. Without a word, she hurled the case into the abyss. It fell without echo, swallowed by the jungle. Gone forever. Connor smiled faintly. "That looked heavy," he said. Zara breathed deeply. For the first time in years, the air didn't taste like ash. The jungle seemed quieter the next morning. The usual screeches and rustling had faded. Even the wind passed gently through the trees. It was as if the forest itself sensed a change. Zara stood at the edge of the ridge, watching the sunlight filter through the mist. Her breathing was slow and deep. Connor was nearby, checking his equipment. He moved without rush, no longer wary of her presence. He had slept through the night without setting a perimeter, without holding his weapon. That trust was not earned by words. It had been earned by choice. "I've sent a signal to my scout vessel," he said. "They'll extract me tomorrow." Zara turned her head slightly. "You don't want to stay longer?" He shook his head. "I found what I was looking for, and something I didn't expect to find." He glanced at her with a calm smile. "You." She didn't respond right away. Her thoughts were heavier than her armor used to be. She had come to this planet for a hunt, a trophy. Instead, she had found a mirror. Not one that showed her reflection, but one that showed who she might have been if things had been different. "I used to believe in the kill," she said. "It was my path, my purpose. Every life I ended proved my strength." She closed her eyes for a moment. "But now I wonder, how many of those were just silences I forced?" Connor didn't interrupt. He let her speak. He knew this was her healing. Zara walked back to her ship one final time. Inside, she triggered a full system purge. Files, mission logs, bounty contracts, all of it erased. The red light on her console faded into soft blue. Her ship was no longer a weapon. It was a vessel again. A choice. A future. When she exited, she looked different. Not just in posture, but in presence. She wasn't hiding behind fear or pride. She wasn't sharpening her instincts like blades. She was standing open to whatever came next. Connor stood as she approached. "You ready to leave this place?" he asked. Zara nodded once. "But not the way I came." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She looked up at the sky. "My ship can carry two." It wasn't a demand. It was an invitation. He considered her offer for only a moment. Then he picked up his gear and slung it over his shoulder. "Lead the way." Zara smiled faintly. It was the first true smile she had made in years. Not for deception, not for dominance, just honesty. They entered the craft together. The doors hissed shut behind them. Inside, the systems hummed to life with new purpose. Zara set the coordinates not toward a war zone or a bounty hub, but toward a quiet star system she once read about. A place no one had ever hunted in. As the ship rose from the jungle floor, the trees below shifted. Birds scattered into the sky. Creatures peeked from under leaves. The legend of the huntress had ended here. But something new had taken its place. Something freer. Something real. In the cockpit, Connor leaned back in the co-pilot seat. "What now?" he asked. Zara looked at the stars on the navigation screen. "Now we find what's worth protecting." He nodded, satisfied with that answer. The engines roared as the ship broke through the clouds. Zara didn't look back. She had buried her past in the ravine, and she had no intention of digging it up again. As the jungle faded behind them, the ship disappeared into the upper atmosphere like a whisper against the wind. Zara, once feared across the stars, had finally begun her own story. The starship moved through space at a quiet pace, its path steady toward an uncharted sector. Zara sat at the control deck, her eyes fixed on the screen. Her armor was gone. In its place, she wore a plain dark suit, flexible, simple, without symbol or rank. It felt strange, but also right. Connor was in the co-pilot seat, running scans of the nearby planets. "Most of the system isn't mapped," he said. "Radiation levels are stable. Gravity tolerances look safe. Might be a good place to land and explore." Zara gave a slight nod. "Let's try the third planet." The ship descended into the atmosphere, cutting through golden clouds and thick air. Below, a world of quiet mountains and shimmering rivers revealed itself. There were no signs of cities, no energy signatures, no warnings. Just life, wild and untouched. It welcomed them without a sound. They landed on a wide plain covered in long grass that waved like water. Zara stepped out first, scanning the horizon. She didn't sense threat. She didn't smell fear. Only the scent of fresh air and warm soil. She relaxed her shoulders, feeling the sun touch her face. Connor stepped beside her, looking around with a half smile. "Reminds me of somewhere back home," he said, before everything got complicated. Zara tilted her head. "Your world felt a war?" He shrugged. "Some parts, but people still try to build again. It's in our nature." They walked toward a ridge that overlooked a silver lake. Zara listened as birds chirped in unfamiliar patterns. Each sound was new, and yet none of them made her reach for a blade. That alone made her chest feel lighter. Every step she took left no trail. The ground accepted her without judgment. At the ridge, they sat in silence. Time passed, but neither measured it. The wind carried seeds across the water. Small creatures peeked from the rocks, and above them, 2 moons drifted lazily through the sky. Zara watched them with fascination. For the first time in her life, she was still, and not because of strategy or caution. "Just peace. Do you regret anything?" Connor asked suddenly. His voice was soft but clear. Zara didn't turn her head. "Regret was forbidden in my training. It was called weakness, but yes. I regret the silence I forced on others. I regret not asking why before striking." Her hands curled slowly in her lap. "I regret not finding this feeling sooner." Connor didn't answer right away. He pulled out one of the wood carvings he had kept. It was the reaching hand, worn, a bit cracked now, but still whole. He held it between them. "I carry reminders too. Not trophies. Just wait, to keep me from forgetting." Zara looked at the carving. She remembered how it had unsettled her before. Now it made sense. A hand not clenched in a fist but reaching out. Not for power, for connection. It was everything she had never understood about humanity. And now it was what she wished to learn. They camped near the lake that night. No walls. No sensors. Just a fire, and the stars above. Zara didn't wear armor to sleep. She lay back on the grass and stared at constellations that meant nothing to her yet. Still, she found comfort in their randomness. Connor spoke once more. "Do you think others like you could change too?" Zara thought for a moment. "Only if they are shown they have a choice. Most are trained to believe they were born to kill, but I wasn't born this way. I was made this way. And I can choose to unmake it." The fire crackled gently. Shadows danced across her face. But there was no threat in them anymore. Only memories, reshaped by light. Zara closed her eyes, not to guard against danger, but to rest. It was a strange feeling. One she had never trusted before, above them. The stars moved slowly, keeping their eternal watch. But tonight, one of their oldest warriors had finally put down her blade. Morning arrived with a gentle wind and golden light spilling across the grass. Zara opened her eyes slowly, her body completely still. Not from caution, but from contentment. She had dreamed for the first time in years. No battles, no blood. Just light and voices she had once silenced now speaking clearly. Connor was already awake, boiling water near the fire. He nodded when she sat up. "Did you sleep?" he asked. She gave a slow nod in return. "For once I did." There was no stiffness in her joints. No tension in her muscles. It felt like a second awakening. The kind no mission ever allowed. They ate quietly, watching the lake shimmer beneath the twin moons. Zara held a small rock in her hand, smooth and warm from the night's fire. She didn't know why she picked it up. Maybe as a reminder of this place, maybe as a new kind of trophy. One born from peace, not conquest. I've been thinking, Connor said as he poured the rest of the water onto the fire. What if we went farther, explored together, shared what we've learned? Zara looked at him, curiosity flickering behind her steady gaze. You want to teach others what we found here? He nodded, if they're willing to listen. The thought settled over her like a blanket. She had spent her life delivering fear. The idea of offering hope felt foreign, but not impossible. She thought of her old titles: huntress, killer, monster. None of them fit anymore. Maybe they never truly did. I don't know how to teach, she said honestly. I was built to end stories, not to start them. Connor stood and dusted off his hands. Then we'll learn together. We'll build something new from the ashes of what you left behind. His voice wasn't filled with pity or romance, just purpose. Zara stood and stared at the distant horizon. Trees danced under the sunlight. Wind carved paths across the open fields. There were no ships chasing her, no contracts waiting in encrypted files. She was finally free to decide her own next step. They returned to the ship by midday. As they approached, the onboard scanner blinked. A signal was being transmitted, not from orbit, from deep space, faint but present. Connor checked the display and frowned. It's encrypted, military class. Not from my people. Zara leaned over and analyzed the wave signature. Her jaw tightened. It's from my kind. Her hands hovered over the control panel, but she didn't open the message. Not yet. Connor glanced at her. Are they tracking you? She shook her head. They don't know I've changed. She stared at the flashing signal. Old instincts pushed her to erase it, to destroy the source. But a new thought pushed harder. Maybe they're looking for something too, she said. Not all of them believe the old ways are the only path. Connor raised an eyebrow. You want to answer them? She nodded slowly. She opened the channel. Static broke through, followed by a familiar voice. One of her former commanders, cold, calculating. Zara, you are overdue. Report your hunt. Transmit trophy data. Return for next deployment. The voice had no doubt, no question. It still believed she was the same. She pressed the transmit button and replied calmly. No trophies, no death, no return. There was silence on the other end, then static, then the signal died completely. She turned away from the screen and exhaled deeply. A signal sent. A door closed. A chapter ended. Connor placed his hand gently on her shoulder. You didn't owe them anything, he said. She gave him a sideways glance. I didn't do it for them. I did it for the one I used to be. That part of her deserved to hear her own voice choose something else. They launched from the surface and headed toward the unexplored systems. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction. But this time, the emptiness didn't feel cold. It felt open. Like possibility. Zara sat beside Connor, no longer as a weapon or a shadow, but as someone new. Someone becoming. Together, they left the past behind and flew toward what no map could show. A future they would shape, not by conquest, but by connection.